The refuge came about when we purchased the property originally, back in on the 4th of July 1990. We were really taken with the biodiversity that was here. It was just extraordinary. So we investigated ways that we may best protect all the values, the heritage values and the biodiversity and the birds and the animals that call the refuge home. Early on with the Queensland Parks and Wildlife program of nature refuges, we were the 67th actually gazetted onto our land title. It was a whole process of evaluation. Waluma is one of the smallest nature refuges in Queensland, and there are now nearly 600. It's also a staging point for animals that are travelling towards the larger, much larger Bundaberg State Forest, which is approximately a kilometre up the road. So that was taken in consideration too. So it was a very long, involved process before the nature refuge was granted over it, and it attaches to the land title in perpetuity. So we have a conservation agreement in place down in the refuge, and that's to stop damage being done and to try and enhance the values that are already there, and for people to enjoy it, but not to destroy it. The bullring was very visible when we purchased the property nearly 32 years ago now, and it contained a really large circle and then two smaller circles off to the side, and a ceremonial and initiation site. And it actually is outside the boundary of the refuge, and down below in the refuge itself there is other evidence of Aboriginal occupation and use over many years, too many to count I think, and it would have been an absolute paradise for them, for food, for shelter, for making artefacts, for making weapons, just provided for all their needs. The boardwalks that have been built down within the refuge have various stories to tell. The first one was done in conjunction with a grant. 1999 I think that was built. The second one further along, that was a major family project, but it really has stood the test of time, and there's been a lot of water come through that gully since that boardwalk was built, and it's still doing the job that it was put for there in the first place, which was to protect those creek crossings so that we weren't tramping through them and disturbing all the vegetation and making a great big mess. And we also have one only that we know of, a Fraser Island sapname. We can only assume, and somehow or another, birds carried that seed from Fraser Island to the mainland. The canoe trees in existence down there, that was standing when we first bought the property. It came down in a large storm probably 20 years ago now, but the canoe that was cut out of it was very visible to us when it was still standing, but it fell down, and where it had been cut, one side has smitted off, but it's evident that it was certainly done with stone axes and not steel axes, and it was probably a family canoe because you could fit two people across the beam of it quite comfortably side by side. So on the end of that tree there's something resembling the size of a shield that's been cut out even before that canoe was cut out, so the mind boggles as to how long ago that might have happened. The water power pump we have down in our first creek is a bunyip. It's a P13 that runs on car tyre, and it lifts water up from that point to a tank up near the house, which is 20 metre pumping head. A normal year when we have rainfall, the flow rate out of that creek's 2 litres a second. So that more than powers the bore head that's on it. That bore head can be increased, so you can pump more water, but you have to have the flow rate to sustain it. The Goodwood gum. We have one large gum and a small stand of younger gums coming on, but although they're a local species, they are not common at all. So we were very surprised to find that we had these gums. They shed their bark in big long strips as part of their behaviours. Also, we have the endangered species Macrosomia landremortis, which is a cycad. It only grows in 3 bioregions, or been found in 3 bioregions within Queensland, and it's been found on Waluma, and there's only a small number of them, but they have not been found elsewhere within this bioregion. There's a ochre site up in the cliff face in the second gully on the western side, so product would have come out of that for ceremony and being used. That the source for that was actually on the property. The sugar glider tree is a sugar gum, and the sugar gliders come in there and they feed off the sap. It's resident on the main ridge between the 2 gullies, hanging over the cliff face tenaciously, and when the sap is running and you look closely at the tree, you can see where the sugar gliders hang upside down and use their teeth to garner the sugar sap. Last year they announced a round of grants which we were encouraged to apply for, and we did, and we were successful. So the property hadn't been burnt for probably 50 years. We engaged a local Indigenous business called Gregory Land Management, and they undertook the cultural burn here on the property, which was a slow burn to try and remove a lot of the mulch that was covering the various land types we have here, which are 4 on this property, and to allow the native species to be able to regenerate. We were really lucky to have been able to have Gibigunium organise the program and have staff on hand, and we're really happy with the overall result, as the native grasses are coming back now, and there is now a fire management plan over the property. We've also just recently been approved for another grant, which includes a weed eradication program through the refuge. So a group of people will be employed through Gibigunium once again to go through and remove anything that really shouldn't be within the refuge that's not there. And the other part of the grant provides funds for another burn to be done this year when burning season comes up in the colder months.